Namaste, everyone. This is Nature of Reality Radio on the day of a new moon, July 15th, 2015. The new moon is at 7:26 p.m. Eastern tonight, by the way, for all of you who are wondering. This is your host, Andrew Fisher, broadcasting every Wednesday from the suburbs of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to expose the true and false nature of reality for what it is and what it isn't. On the show today, we have Tolec, the ET contactee, who keeps in touch with the ET Council known as the Andromeda Council. I've got a lot of guests in the chat room. Tolec is apparently a pretty popular person. However, there's only there's 13 users. Unfortunately, none of those users can post in the chat room because all of them are guests without a actual blog talk account. But I'm sure a lot more people will tune in. I expect Tolec to call in shortly. He knew I was going to cover news first with just a few quick things. The Andromeda Council is an intergalactic, interstellar, and interdimensional governance and development body of aligned benevolent star system and planets of sentient intelligent life for worlds in both the Milky Way and Andromeda galaxies. It has 12 different distinct member worlds and many, many races. There is one ambassador per seat for each of the member senior worlds, and the Galactic Federation, which is an organization within the Andromeda Council, is represented by the number 10 senior member of the Council, the people of the Tau Ceti star system planet Zeta. That Zeta is spelled Xeta. Not the same as Zeta Reticuli, the star system that Bob Lazar is known for talking about, which is spelled Zeta. I'll have Tolec on shortly. How you doing? Glad to have you on the air. Several times when I asked you to come on my show and you weren't doing radio and such, but that's changed now. It's great to see you're on the air. I love listening to your channel. I do subscribe to it, listen to all the interviews, and I've learned a lot from you. I certainly would recommend your interview with Alfred Weber back in the day, back in 2011. That was a while back, but still a lot to learn in that series of interviews. But to start off, I don't think we really need to get into your life story and all. You've talked about that in lots of other interviews. But
Sure.
The whole thing about the Andromeda Council and, for that matter, the Galactic Federation. So as Arnold Schwarzenegger said, who is your daddy and what does he do? How's about who is the Andromeda Council and the Galactic Federation and what do they do? Tell us all you want. You got the floor.
Sure, okay. Thanks for having me. Andromeda Council nomenclature, which is it just depends on where they are and what work they're doing. But in any case, it is an interdimensional, interstellar governance and development body. And there are 12 senior members of the Andromeda Council from a variety of star systems in both the Milky Way galaxy, at least what we call the Milky Way galaxy, as well as from the Andromeda galaxy. And I've said this before, people can think of it as sort of an interstellar, interdimensional, and intergalactic United Nations. That's essentially its function. And it functions for the purpose of cohesiveness and, if you will, synergy of trading services, diplomatic exchange, cultural exchange, arts, in the arts, education, music, all of it. Excuse me. And the Galactic Federation itself is, I'll use Earth terms. It's like the day-to-day management company of the Andromeda Council. Its function is to take care of, for lack of better words, the enforcement of the different protocols and guidelines of all of the member planets of the Andromeda Council. And that also includes facilitating new relations. There's a whole list of things. And the Council has a number of different either subcommittees or advisory boards that do the work necessary whenever, if you will, a new planet decides they want to join the Council and become, part of its organization and to benefit from all the things that it does. And why, I don't know if this is applicable, but why me? Why now? My understanding since I've begun this work is that my original soul essence was first birthed on the planet on the planet Dakota in the Tegeta star system, which is one of the 7 major stars of what's known as the Pleiades, the open star cluster of the Pleiades. There's Merope, Alcyone, and a few others. Tegeta is one of the major suns. There are 4 planets there. Era is one of them. And Tegeta, sorry, I'll be all right. And Dakota is another. And my soul essence was first birthed and raised on that planet. Why is that relevant? Well, it's relevant because the primary contact person, who's the commander of the primary Andromeda Council biosphere and all the other biosphere, he's kind of like the guy in charge, he's also from Dakota, as well as the gentleman who's the ambassador from planet Dakota through the council to Earth, and his name is Tonka. Now, of course, there are other people from other planets, but that's many times when people are having contact from other beings, higher dimensional or not, from other star systems, it's likely that if people are having contact on this planet, it's because the people that are visiting them are originally from their own planet of origin, their soul essence planet of origin. Not too many people recognize that, but there's enough contact stories. If people do any modicum of research, they'll see that consistency of information. So that's kind of why me on planet Earth now and why they are my contact people. As an example, Vice Chairwoman Tanya, her planet of origin in the Andromeda constellation, not galaxy, but constellation, as we would see it from Earth space, from the star Merak, people could see on the star chart, and her home planet is Terial, T-E-R-I-A-L. And like I said, there are senior members from 12 different star systems, each with their home world, as well as junior members of the council as well that aren't even listed. There's a lot of them. It's probably 300 worlds plus. And if people want to look up that information, they can see it on the AndromedaCouncil.com website on the About page. I think that's a good introduction to the topic.
Thank you very much. And just to avoid the confusion of the Galactic Federation and the Galactic Federation of Light, you have said, and also Tanath and George Kavaslis, too, have talked about how the Galactic Federation of Light is a malevolent ET council that masquerades as a benevolent council. However, and by the way, throughout the course of this interview, I may ask you some questions that you've probably seen before that I've sent you in the past on your through your email. Otherwise, you wouldn't have much of an interview if I didn't re-ask some of those questions. But I did ask you.
Not a problem.
Yeah, I did ask you once if you knew about Sheldon Neidl, who claims to be a contactee of the Galactic Federation, and he also refers to that as the Galactic Federation of Light. And you said, no, I don't actually keep in touch with the guy, so I don't really know what he believes. However, shortly after that, I found out that there is another ET council called the Galactic Federation of Light, which is strictly benevolent, and the group known as Ashtar Command is basically like the day-to-day operations group for all intents and purposes of that Galactic Federation of Light. But like you said, you're not really familiar with Sheldon Neidl's work, so I'm guessing you're not aware of that. But you are aware of the malevolent Galactic Federation of Light that masquerades as a benevolent one. So why don't you tell us all about that one, expose that one for the fraud that it is?
I'll tell you as much as I know and remember. It's a while since I've talked about this, but as an example, and you and I are talking on the phone, but I'm going to go to my own Andromeda Council website to the About page so I can reference what the specifics of our own Galactic Federation as it's relevant to the Andromeda Council. The Galactic Federation, the company of the Andromeda Council, it's comprised of 140 star systems, and like I said before, 300 planets in its membership. And its lead planet is called Zeta, Xeta. And itself, it's the 10th senior member of the Andromeda Council. To be clear, its location is the Tau Ceti star system. planet Theta. The people from the Galactic Federation of Light claim it's, I don't know, corporate organization, if you will, in the Sirius B star system. I don't know what planet, but decidedly Sirius B. And there's some notorious characters that come from the Sirius B star system, including a number of reptilian races. So that is decidedly how different the Galactic Confederation or Federation of Light. They keep changing the name back and forth. Moreover, this gentleman who uses the Cobra is a single speaker, if you will, for a whole bunch of people who research and do channeling for the Galactic Confederation or Federation of Light. And I remember early on when I was doing some work, I would make a statement or release something on the Andromeda Council website, and within 3 or 4 days later, I would see them making statements, taking my words and kind of turning them, changing them a little bit, claiming them as theirs. Like, not cool. This is the first time I've spoken publicly about it, but it's just not cool at all. They can claim to be who they claim to be. I know enough about them that it's bad news, especially for a group that would advise people to enter DNA changing chambers or DNA enhancement chambers or fourth dimensional changer frequency chambers in order to become a higher dimensional human. As the British would say, bollocks. There will be nothing for a person to do should he or she want to stay on this planet and become a higher dimensional person. All I got to do is be here, period. Now, if anyone wants to do personal work to clean up emotional negative energy that's residual in their bodies, or if anybody wants to do work to improve their emotional and or spiritual being, if anybody wants to bring greater light into what is called their light body, you're welcome to do it during the journey. But for anyone that's here, when that moment comes that this world transforms and becomes a higher dimensional, higher frequency world, all they have to do is have the desire and just be here on planet. Nobody needs to enter any kind of DNA infusion transformation chamber. Moreover, I would warn people that there's likely a high degree of risk if you choose to do so. Let's do it, do it at your own peril, kind of thing. So that's some insight about the Galactic Confederation, Federation of Light, GFL, GFOL, whatever they call themselves. Notice that they keep changing the name, so that's always interesting. So that's as much as I know. Anything else? No, that's the substance of it. I can give you some small facts, but that's the substance.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah, you want to say something? Oh, okay. You were just telling me move on to the next question. Okay.
Yep, sure.
You mentioned you mentioned there are reptilians on the Galactic Federation of Light, malevolent reptilians. Question I asked you back in the day about the reptilians and what kind of essence they are. You did in that article that you have on your website, something called like the Hard or Disturbing Truth or something to that effect, talk about how the reptilians, they are of a lower fourth dimensional essence, and in order to masquerade as a human, they would lower their essence down to a third dimensional reptilian essence, and then after doing that, they would put the holographic mask of a human around them. However, other people have talked about other ways that the reptilians can masquerade as humans, and that is that they take the body of a human that is, for all intents and purposes, an empty vessel human, and they attach themselves to the lower chakras of the human, and they can do that because they're an astral entity. And Mark Kimmel, in my interview with him a couple weeks ago, he talked about how the reptilians will clone a human, and then they will control that clone. That clone is the empty vessel that they will control. But to make this whole thing even more confusing, George Kavassilis said that the malevolent reptilians, they actually don't come from the lower fourth dimension. They come from the second dimension, but they impose their will under the guise of lower fourth dimensional entities, and so do the malevolent grays for that matter. And when I asked Alfred Weber about that, he said, well, I think that has to do with service to self, because as a second dimensional entity, they are service to self, but when they masquerade as a lower fourth dimensional entity, they are acting as a service to others being what they're faking that, when in reality they're a service to others being, and he thinks maybe that's what George Cavazos meant when he said that they come from the second dimension, but they masquerade as lower fourth dimensional entities. Now, I'm guessing that your source for how the reptilians are fourth dimensional, then becomes third dimensional, and then put the holographic mask of a human around them comes from your Andromedal contacts. But some of these other things, like people like Mark Kimmel, Alfred Weber, and George Cavazos have said about other ways that the reptilians can masquerade as humans, and maybe what other dimensions they actually come from. Do you have any comments about that?
Let me address Mark's perspective first, and it's probably not an alien perspective when you think about it, because if you think about the concept of some kind of spiritual essence, without defining whether it's soul or not, but some kind of spiritual essence animating a body, we do that on this planet right now. You, for example, me, millions of people on this planet. I think the ratio is about 70% and 30%. 70% of the people that are on this planet today essentially are original Lemurian soul essence, spirit essence form from way back on this planet. The other 30% are people who would be considered star people, visitors, myself, many others, possibly you, I don't know. We've come in from other star systems, other planets, about 100,000 years ago to experience 3D life and live 3D lives on this planet. So the concept of a spirit essence animating an organic form, I understand, and it makes sense. So can a reptilian do it? Sure, I get it. That's not surprising to me. Second topic, I've never inquired. Moreover, I've never heard about this concept of, well, they're really 2D, kind of masquerading as 4D. I've never heard about it, but moreover, I don't think it's relevant, because up until this point in time, they've had no good intentions for the people of planet Earth. They've taken our animals. They've taken adult partners like women. They've taken children. They like to create an enormous amount of fear and anxiety, because in their dimensional form, they feed off of fear and anxiety-based energy. It's sort of like them taking a drug. Gives them a high. They feed off of it. So they've been feeding off of humans for years, and if that's the way they're going to treat us, then they can go somewhere else. But their time's up on this planet. They will not be able to survive the higher frequencies that this world is going to vibrate at when it makes its change sometime in the near future. They just won't be able to survive it. And I'm happy for that. They can go somewhere else. But there just know that there are also some other star systems that they've invaded, taken over, abused people. So there's going to be a lot of cleaning up of reptilian messes throughout the cosmos in the coming years. Long answer, but that's the answer.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Ray Kusalandich, a good friend of yours, I had him on my show, and he said there's only like about 200 or so reptilians on planet Earth at the moment. Well, I'm thinking, well, hold on a minute. Is he including, what kind of reptilians is he including? Well, first of all, Akashic Records reader Andrew Bartz says there's 18 species of reptilians influencing life on planet Earth, and only one is malevolent. And he did clarify that the Dracos, the Hydras, and the other malevolent groups of reptilians, like the ones from Sirius, they're all clones of the Alpha Draconans, so he considers them to be just one malevolent group. However, when Ray Kusalandich, he said there's like 200 or so malevolent reptilians left on planet Earth, I was a little caught off guard, because I'm thinking, is he including like Hillary Clinton, David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger, George Herbert Walker Bush, and all the other humans that Ike fans would say are actually reptilians masquerading as humans? Is he including those political and corporate leaders, or is he not including them in that number?
Yeah. Ray and I were chatting, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago. I just don't remember when, but when he asked that question, we talked about it. I believe I gave him the breakdown, but I'll give it to you as well. Okay, a little history, and I'll keep it as concise as possible. There were at minimum 15 major Draco and Hydra Reptilian undersea bases around this planet. I reported on the either cleaning up, collapsing, vacuuming out, or destruction on about 6 of them. I also reported on the one that happened, which was an underground lattice network base west of Washington, D.C. All of those major bases were run by the Draco and Hydra Reptilians. And the numbers are in a report that I did recently on the first page of the Andromeda Council website. If anybody wants to look at them. But essentially, thousands of Dracos were killed in various battles. At least a couple of thousand high-ranking military Cabal Reptilian officers, which include general level, as well as high-ranking Illuminati officials that are reptilian, were captured. If you will, and here's my point, the hierarchy of the whole infrastructure of reptilian superstructure and power structure that exists on Earth and has been running this planet for years has effectively been chopped down to nothing, almost a minuscule amount. And the 200 figure that I've provided, that Ray is referencing, is, and the breakdown is as follows: about somewhere between 70 to 75 pure remaining mid to high level reptilian officials that are deep underground and kind of like pass the orders on up to their remaining lieutenants on the planet. So that leaves around 130. They're either human reptilian hybrids or humans that have reptilian vibrational essence in them. That is the remaining, power command structure of what's left of the thousands of them that were here on this planet. Now, Hillary Clinton and Bush and all those others you mentioned, I don't know what they are. It's not something I've researched. I've heard about this. David Icke's been talking about it for years. But I don't know what category those people fall into. All I know is what my guys have told me and said, dude, there's only about 200 left. Here's the rough breakdown. About 70 are pure reptilians, and the others are some form of either hybrid or occupied, clone bodies. So that's as much as I know.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to another group of malevolent extraterrestrials that are in the Illuminati. In your interview with Alfred Weber, you did talk about that the planet Nibiru that Zechariah Sitchin popularized does in fact exist, and you talked about how your ET contactee friends did move it in an orbit high above the plane of Earth's orbit to prevent a flyby around the Mayan calendar end date that would pulverize planet Earth. They wanted to make sure that didn't happen, so they moved it out of the way. But you did say that the Anunnaki that Sitchin talked about, they do reside on Nibiru. They're actually one of several different ET races on Nibiru. And the interesting thing that you said was those Anunnaki extraterrestrials on Nibiru, that aren't all malevolent. There are some benevolent ones too. But you said that they make up the Illuminati. Now, a lot of people, when they hear Illuminati, they would think of the reptilians that David Icke popularized. But no, you're saying.
Hang on. I don't believe I ever made a statement that connected the Anunnaki, the Illuminati. I don't ever remember making that statement. It's not something that sounds like I would say. I would talk about the Illuminati and the Cabal as connected to reptilians. but not necessarily Anunnaki connected to Illuminati.
I seem to recall hearing otherwise, but is it possible the Anunnaki? Is it possible that the Anunnaki? Well, actually, I'm sure it is possible, because I remember in that interview you did recently with that a woman who has like a little bit of a hearing problem. She said that the Anunnaki from Nibiru, the Reptilians, and also a group of ETs from Sirius did make an alliance to work together to keep the human race in check. So I guess that does mean the Anunnaki from Nibiru are part of the Illuminati. Would that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, in that context, sure. Yeah, because, I mean, the Illuminati are not just the reptilian high officials. It's the reptilian high officials. It's whatever the human families are that are carrying out the orders of the reptilians and the governmental, societal, religious circles on this planet. And so as the Anunnaki, we're working with the people from Sirius B, and we're working with others, with the Illuminati, in terms of power on this planet and managing the, they think of us as cattle. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. But yeah, everything that I've learned about this traveling planet called Nibiru is that based on basically March of 2012, it flew, to use a corollary, if Earth is on like the third floor of a multi-story building, they moved the path of Anunnaki or up to around the 9th floor, and it just whoosh, it went by. It just kept traveling, and it continues to travel out in the cosmos. And yes, based on everything I've learned, there's a race of people from that planet called the Anunnaki, and they're very warm people, very warm, very caring, not a bad bone in their body. So, don't know if that helps, but that's my knowledge about that topic.
Thank you for explaining that.
Sure.
About the thing that confuses me though about the moving the orbit of Nibiru, moving it above the plane of the Earth. I mean, I can certainly understand that DTs might do that to protect us, but that raises a couple of questions about the layout of the solar system. Some other people like Santos Bonacci and also Nassim Haramein have talked about how the solar system, the solar system perspective that we think of with that's like it's flat with the planets moving in elliptical orbits around the sun is a misconception. In reality, the solar system is moving through space at tremendous velocity, and the way you should picture it, according to Nassim Haramein and also Santos Bonacci, is think of a traffic cone, and you would put the sun at the top of the traffic cone, and the planets, they're not orbiting the sun. In reality, draw like a straight line or a pole down from the sun on the top of the cone down to the middle of the cone on the ground. The planets are actually orbiting that rod that goes down to the ground, and they're traveling behind the sun, sort of like a windsock would travel behind the front of the windsock as the wind is blowing, and that happens because, well, it's traveling through space at enormous velocity. Now, that kind of raises the question of how could a planet like Nibiru, as Zachariah Sitchin says, go like in an orbit that's way out beyond Neptune, but then eventually go between Mars and Jupiter? Wouldn't it have to trail in its own orbit way behind the sun and such? And well, like Andrew Bartzis and others say, there's like 66 planets in the solar system, and I could certainly believe that. Mainstream science would lie to us about how many there are, but this idea that the solar system is shaped like a cone and not flat, have your contacts told you anything about that?
Let me address one of the early points that you made regarding this topic. Is this solar system moving through space? Yes. Is this galaxy moving through space? Yes. Got a better one for you. Space move through space? Yes. Even space itself moves. And now to address your question, I tend to not ask questions of my contacts from a complex perspective. I try to keep the questions as direct, as simple as possible, and that enables me to receive answers that are least complex as possible. So I've not asked them about one construct of the solar system as compared to the other. I've not asked them exactly how Nibiru would be coming in and going by. I simply asked them to tell me what will be happening with Nibiru. Is there any risk? Give me an idea of how you guys, because you said you would, how you would mitigate any danger from Nibiru passing. So they give me all these different visuals. Instead, they gave me a visual I would understand, which is, think of Earth as here, and think of Nibiru sort of heading toward our space. And it's like, listen, we're just going to move its trajectory so it doesn't endanger Earth, and think of it as passing overhead. So I ask a relatively direct, simple question. That's the kind of answer I get. I'm sorry it's not as complex as what some other people are talking about, but that's the answer I got.
Okay, fair enough. But your ET contacts have also told you about why many other groups of ETs are very interested in Earth. Among other things, humans are genetic royalty, and another reason is you talked about how the life on Earth is very, very complex. And I also remember you saying that Earth, compared to other planets, has a very high water content. Now, I find that to be quite interesting because I remember reading in a book back in the day, some guy said that ETs would be kind of shocked that we'd be living on a planet with a lot of water because, well, think about this. If you put crackers in water and spin the water around with a spoon, the crackers will dissolve. But put crackers in a hydrocarbon that looks just like water, the crackers will not dissolve because the water has a polarity of sorts, but the hydrocarbon doesn't. And an ET race that's not water-based would see that and they'd be like, whoa, I don't want to live on a water planet because it's going to tear me up like it's going to tear the crackers up. But then I had an epiphany. I thought, oh, wait a minute. That it all makes sense now. The ETs, they're impressed with us that we can live on a planet that has a lot of water because the fact that we live on a polarized substance like water, which can tear things apart because of its polarity, shows that Earth's life is a very tough, rough and tough form of life, if you know what I mean. So that's the kind of the epiphany I had there, and it seemed like it made sense at that point. But from what your understanding is, they are interested in us because, well, there's a lot of water. What exactly did you mean by that? And also the other reasons why.
Yeah, but it's not. It's not only the amount of water. I think the more important concept to grasp onto is that whoever we name euphemistically as the creators of this planet, because you think of a concept as an overall creator or creational source, there are sub-creators, or God, I call them godlets, small g, small o, small d, little gods, that have created solar systems and stars and planets. I remember a conversation with Wendell Stevens back in the, early to mid-90s, retired Lieutenant Colonel Wendell Stevens, who either authored or co-authored 26-plus books, including the 4 or 5 contact from Pleiades, the contact notes from the Pleiades for the Billy Meyer case. Wendell, he passed, I think, within the past 3 years, but he'd been living in Tucson for years. I got a chance to meet him and became a good friend of his. We were having a conversation on a Saturday morning, and he said, you know why this planet is so interesting for them, why they visit here so much? It's because the diversity of life. He said, no, think about it. He said, think about just how many insects are on this planet and different species of insects alone on this planet. You have insects, you have animals, you have birds, and also most of the, as I've learned from a variety of my own contacts, most of the star systems out there have planets with like 1 or 2 races on their planet, on their homeworld. This is, Wendell later went to say, this is really a repository. This is a laboratory repository of life. And that explains why at least some ET races have come here to collect some samples over the course of years. Maybe they need to repopulate some species that have died off on some far distant world. There's more diversity on this planet than pretty much any other place, at least in this galaxy. And that was based on these things I'm talking about right now was based on this conversation with Wendell, who had interviewed a number of people and written books based on their direct one-to-one experiences as contactees with organic ETs from worlds all across the cosmos. So that's really the real focus, if you will, of why this place is so interesting. And think of the fact that we've had all this malevolent reptilian and other ET involvement that's manipulated and changed the course of our history, and yet we still survive. Saying we're thriving right now, but we still survive, and there are probably at least 5 to 6 examples of humans on this planet. Maybe the original indigenous Earth human that was created, and then look at what's called an African. That African man looks decidedly different from an Asian man, who looks decidedly different from a Native American, who looks decidedly different from a Caucasian person, Western European American. We all look radically different from each other. We may be human, / humanoid, but we all look different. That's because we come from different places. We come from different star systems. This planet has been seeded many, many times from visitors from other worlds. And literally, to quote von Daniken, the seeds of the gods are intermingled and intermixed with the different races of the people here on Earth. So that's why this is an amazing planet, because of all of the diversity. Next. Andrew?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can.
Yeah, sorry, I saw the light blinking on my microphone. I was wondering what was that. Well, I guess that answers my question. So, anyway, that whole thing about life on Earth being so diverse, that does raise an interesting question about life existing on other planets, because in my interview with John Lear, he talked about how one of his sources have discussed how there's really life everywhere, and the reason why is because, first of all, stars are not powered by nuclear fusion. They are electromagnetic, and they are, if for all intents and purposes, hotspots on a universal web of electromagnetic energy, and you can sort of think of planets as warm spots and moons and asteroids as cold spots on this universal electromagnetic web. And he said that the electromagnetic energy from the sun and other stars travels across this web to the planets, and the planets have their own filtering system, which allows for life to exist regardless of the planet's size and location and the type of star it orbits, because the stars transfer the energy to the planet, and the planet's filtering system, which is mostly in the atmosphere, he claims, can convert it into a form of life that convert it into an essence that allows for life to exist. Among other things, I could explain how the Anunnaki could survive on Nibiru, even though it's in a 3,600-year elliptical orbit. And John Lear also talked about how the gas giant planets, he claims that they're not actually gas giants, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. If you were to actually fly a rocket ship from Earth and land on them, you would actually find something that's not a gas giant. You could actually survive on it, and it's not what we're told it is. But other sources have said, no, those planets, they are gas giants, but they do have life on them, because that filtering system that Lear talks about does allow for life to exist on those planets. So this idea that there's life on virtually all planets because every planet has its own consciousness filtering system that works in conjunction with a star's electromagnetic energies and that universal web of energy, can you confirm or debunk any truth to that idea?
I haven't heard the word debunk in a long time. That's a kick. Here we go. I'll take them one at a time. Nibiru. Nibiru has its own perpetual self-generating energy source at the core of its world. There's also, for lack of better words, an electromagnetic force field that protects that world as it travels through space. And the internal energy source and the energy that's created, which also creates an atmosphere for that world, enables life to occur on that planet. Okay? That's Nibiru. I have heard, because I've asked the question to my own people, and I've heard in conversations with guys like Jim Nichols, John Lear, Roger Scheer, Bill Hamilton, and a list of other guys, that there's life all throughout the cosmos, and of course in Mark Hamill, all throughout the cosmos, and including in this solar system, but not necessarily organic, as we would call 3D organic life. It's more likely that, and my own people have said, oh, there's a lot of life on the other planets in this star system. They're just not 3D organic life, which is blood, bones, that we're made of. The life forms that are in this solar system are of at least the next higher dimension up, whether it's 4D or 5D. They are spirit-based, fine essence matter life forms, not organic. So there's life all over. Next.
Yes, and one planet or system that definitely has life on it. You talked about this interview with Alfred Weber, and I did talk about it as well in my private session with George Cavazos. He asserts it does exist, that brown dwarf that's between the orbit of Earth and Venus. You don't have to go in as much detail as you did in your interview with Alfred Weber. If people want to learn more about that, they'll just have to listen to that. But that brown dwarf, and also the planet that orbits it, that has a race of like Earth-like humans, 3D humans on it. What's the deal with that, and when do you think we'll be able to see that? Could it perhaps be in 2017 when the consciousness shift is said to happen? But don't get into that 2017 consciousness shift thing just yet. We'll get into that later in the interview. But is that possible that maybe then is when we might be able to see that brown dwarf and its moon and its planet?
Yeah. The last conversation that I had with my people regarding this topic is that this planet that you're talking about will likely, if you will, reveal itself during the time of the higher dimensional shift of this world, when it transforms and becomes a higher dimensional world. That is most likely when it will appear, that people will be able to say, wow, that bright shiny light over there that we couldn't see before next to Venus is actually, that looks like something. And they're going to, from what I understand, the people on that planet are going to be part of the evolution of this solar system as we start to venture out and explore the cosmos, because they're right here. They're here in our own solar system. So, what else do you have?
Yeah, another star that's allegedly in our two stars, actually. There's a theory by, don't know the guy's name, he's posited a theory that there's a red dwarf star called Nemesis that's responsible for many of the extinctions that happened throughout the course of time. And it's also said that there is another red dwarf star besides Nemesis in our solar system. George Cavazos told me about it in my private session with him. He says that, and Alex Collier too, asserted that this second sun does exist. It's on the opposite side of the main sun. We can't see it because it orbits the sun at the same velocity that Earth orbits the sun. Therefore, it's out of our sight. And George Cavazos told me that this second sun, the reason it's there is a balance of the male energy. The sun, it's a male energy dominant star. This second sun is a balance of the male energy. There's lots of balance of male energies throughout mythology and history, like Enlil and Enki in Sumeria, Cain and Abel in the Bible, and many others. And he claims that this second sun is a real life symbolism of that mythology, of a balance of the male energies. So these two red dwarfs, the second sun and also the star Nemesis, that some people say does exist and has caused many extinctions. Can you confirm or debunk the existence of those two stars?
Here's as much as I know. I was in sort of back and forth discussion with somebody who'd been with me for a while, and he asked the same kind of question, so I asked my guys, and they basically said, yes, it's farther out. So two answers. Yes, it's I guess like Alex has said, it's on the same plane that our sun, same location, if you will, but same plane and location where our sun exists, which is why we can't see it. And B, but it's a lot farther out. I know my words aren't technical nor scientific, but it's not something that we would consider to use the language to describe us as having a binary star system. But our cousins out in the heavens think so. They're like, oh, yeah, you already have a binary star system. There's a star out there not too far from where you guys are located that makes you a binary star system. That's as much as I know. That's what they've told me.
Okay, let's switch gears a little bit here. Go back
Sure.
to Billy Meyer for a moment. You did mention him earlier. Billy Meyer has said that his Pleiadian Nordic ETs have told him that a problem with planet Earth is overpopulation. Now, that many people would find that to be a head scratcher because, well, first of all, Andrew Bartz, as Akashic Records reader, says there's actually 50 billion people on planet Earth. The 7 billion is a huge underestimate. But even if there is 50 billion, if you were to, let's imagine there was 7 billion. It has been said that the entire global population could fit in the state of Texas. Each person would have like an acre of land to themselves. There'd still be plenty of room to spare. And 50 billion, well, that means that each person would have like 1/7 that area, but still, that's not that bad. So that makes you wonder, what is Billy Meyer talking about when he says that there's overpopulation, or more specifically, what are his ET contactees talking about? So is Earth really overpopulated? Are Billy Meyer's ET contacts right, or are they kind of confusing the issue here?
I don't agree with everything that Billy Meyer has said. And that's okay. And we all have our own perspective in terms of what we've learned and who we learn it from. His contact people were from the Tegeta star system, but the planet Era, E-R-R-A. My people are from the planet Dakota, a different source. And there's just simply a lot of things that I've learned over the course of years that Billy has said about what will likely happen to the future of man on this planet, or what can happen, that I certainly don't believe or subscribe to. Now we'll step aside and we'll talk about my own belief. I've done some considerable traveling around this country, and I've seen places like, due east of California, where there are expansive hills everywhere. I've seen southwest Texas. I've seen the deserts of Arizona. There's a lot of land on this planet. I don't know how it's overpopulated. I think that the populations are concentrated in certain places, like India, and that people, and certainly certain cities where basically people are living on top of each other. It's my own belief that human beings can live and thrive far better if they have open air, if they have space to breathe, if they can get access to water, if they can go walk in the hills, just so that they can prompt or bring the return of their own hectic urban lives back to the vibration of nature and the vibration of the energy that exists out in nature. I choose to stay away from population centers. That's my preference. I've always lived. I don't mind going to cities. I enjoy the energy of a city, but I certainly don't want to live in a city where people are piled on top of each other. But I've done a lot of traveling around this country and other countries around this globe, and there's a lot of land. So I don't buy that argument about this planet is overpopulated. I just don't. Next topic.
Yeah, but in regards to population, what we're being lied to about what it actually is, on the surface, I just said there's, according to Andrew Bartz, there's 50 billion, but also this raises the question of hollow Earth. What have your ET contacts told you about the hollow Earth? It seems to be some confusion over how hollow Earth actually works. I mean, some people say that mainstream science is right in regards to the whole crust, mantle, and core thing, but the reason there is life in that hollow Earth is because you have to imagine, like, for every atom inside the Earth there is a plethora of life that exists in another dimension, density, realm, whatever word you want to use to describe that, and that's the way you should look at it. But other people assert, no, that's not how Hollow Earth works. In reality, there is no mantle for all intents and purposes. All the lava and magma is in the crust, and there's a huge open space where the mantle would be, and the ETs, they are walking upside down, for lack of a better phrase, on the other side of the crust, and there are holes at the poles that people like Alex Collier have talked about that you could fly into, like Admiral Byrd did, and the sun, like the core of the Earth, it is, like as you explained, a fourth dimensional sun, and that means that for the people of Hollow Earth, it's always daytime, but of course that contradicts what other people have said about how there is actually a mantle with tons of lava, and the life that we're talking about in Hollow Earth exists in like the dimension, density, or realm within the atom. So have your ET contacts told you about Hollow Earth, and how does it actually work?
Here's what I've learned based on what I've asked. There have been a number of people who have followed Sheldon Neidl for years, and he talks about the people from Agartha and Hollow Earth. And fascinating claim. I don't have any knowledge of people called the Agarthans. So we'll start there. Number two, what I've learned is that, and again, I'm not going to do this from a technical perspective because that's not my orientation. I'm more of a sociologist and a political scientist. What I know is that there continue to be higher dimensional people living and thriving inside this planet. Now, let's address, we'll go from the core on out. I reported on this on December 21st, 2012, or I reported regarding December 21, 2012, that the core of the Earth as a ball of energy had changed from a particular plasma-like source to a higher frequency, higher density source called SAR. And the Andromeda Council scientists have a sense of humor because they said, think of it this way, it's star without a T, which means it's almost the kind of energy source you would find that is emanating from a star. Almost. And this, the transformation of this world also has to do with this new energy source at the middle, the very center core of this planet, what people would call the core. Then there are other layers, and essentially, based on what I've learned in terms of organic people that live inside the Earth, it's not that living at the center of a hollow planet. It's that they're living miles, and I don't know how many miles, but miles underground in, if you will, and I'm not saying that they did it, but within carved out caverns, carved out chambers that may even be miles high. As an example, the difference between one Andromeda Council biosphere, and we have some small ones like they're the size of Neptune. We have some that are the size of Mars, some that are the size of Jupiter, actually. It's miles in between floors, and I'm using this as a reference. Well, those were specifically created to house different people coming from different cultures and planets and different dimensions to live and work there as a governmental center out in space, biosphere. People live inside of it. Well, there's your corollary. Here on planet Earth, there are people who live inside this world. Not necessarily in the core, the image that people get of hollow Earth, but within the layers of the Earth, imagine that there's a layer, or maybe two, with miles in between where people can live. And of course, their energy sources comes from the energy at the core of the Earth. That's where they get their light and everything else. That's my knowledge of it and how it works.
All right, let's go to another science topic. You've talked about how there is a correlation between time and gravity. Now, there's a little bit of confusion here from different sources. Alex Collier, in his talks in the mid-'90s was talking about how gravity, his ET contacts have told him that it has something to do with the radiation from a star. That's where gravity comes from. And I also, in regards to what time is, that raises a question of how that correlates with time. And Indigo Child Matías de Stefano, who lives in Argentina, he has said that time, as we understand it, should be thought of as a measure of the decay of matter. Why do we age? Why does matter decay? Because we have the illusion of time existing in our reality. That's what he says. But that would make you think, wait a minute, does that mean the radiation from a star is what causes us to decay? Well, no. Lots of people would say the radiation from like the sun, mainstream science has lied to us about that. It's actually very healthy. You want to get in the sun as much as possible. So, I mean, this is a very confusing issue in regards to how gravity and time are correlated, and is time related to the decay of matter, as De Stefano says. So I guess I'll let you give your take on this and comment on what those other people that I've talked about have said. What do you have to say about time and gravity and its correlations?
I'm sorry, I'm not a real expert on this topic. What I have learned and what I do know is that there is a direct correlation between it's hard to talk about this topic because there's so much in regarding these topics that we don't have words for. So I'm going to do my best. I've learned that it's true that the farther you get out in space from this globe, again, wrong words, but time slows down. So there's a different corollary between time and gravity, being on the planet as compared to being away from it. What I can tell you, and again, my process by which I communicate, it includes like still images and, if you will, video clips. It includes telepathy as language that I hear, and essentially what they've shown me and told me is that. I'll give you an example. And I just learned this information recently. It was one of those aha moments for me. When those of us who choose to, let's say that we're all high-level 4D or 5D people, and we've got family and friends out in space in that vibration, and we choose to come down here and live an organic life. So I asked them the question, let's say, because they told me, essentially, that I've been coming here on this planet for and incarnating approximately 75,000 years, which would mean a lot of lifetimes. So if 75,000 lifetimes is the amount of lifetimes that I've been coming down to this planet, I asked them, all right, understanding that, what would it feel like for you in upper 4D or 5D if I were to leave and come down to this planet that many times? I said, well, 75,000. Well, it's about 75,000 years would feel like that you've been gone, in your terms, about a year and a half. And I was blown away to learn that. That means that 100,000 years would feel like I'm gone for 2 years for them. Which means for them, if I was gone a year, it would be about 50,000 years. And that's the difference between higher vibrational, whether you call it density or dimensional life, and organic life on Earth. Organic life is short, it's fragile, it's ephemeral. It goes by like the blink of an eye compared to what all of the other races experience. And from, if you remember from your conversation with Mark Kimmel, I'm sure that he told you that we in this physicality of 3D organic are but like an infinitesimally small fraction of the totality of all life in the cosmos. That there's like millions and millions and millions of life forms that don't take physicality, that never come down here and vibrate as a 3D organic person. All of that is to say that organic life on this planet is quick. It's fragile. It happens really, really fast. And there's, as you've learned, there's almost no corollary between what time is like for them as compared to us. Because, again, it would be like, if I'm down here for 50,000 lifetimes, for them, it's like I'm gone one day. Boy, think about the magnitude of that kind of difference. That's as much as I can tell you what I've learned about time and gravity and its relevance to this planet.
Well, that does raise a lot of questions, because many people, when they think of a fourth dimension, fourth density, they think of like one of the characteristics is there is no time. In fact, some people have said when we ascend, for lack of a better phrase, we're not going to go into to 4D. We're going to go straight from 3D to 5D. And like Dolores Cannon, the late Dolores Cannon, she said one reason why is because there is no time is an illusion all along. The only major difference between 3D and 4D is in 4D there is no time. So we'll go straight to 5D. But wait a minute, you just said, basically explained there is time in 4D. They just perceive it differently. So how can you say that there is no time in 4D? I've asked this to some of my previous guests, and it seems they don't seem to give a direct answer. But what do you have to say about this?
Here's my answer. Whenever I ask questions, many times it's like anything else. The more specific question you ask, the more specific answer you get. From what I understand, I've always been a student of this topic of time, whether I'm here on this planet or any other place working. And what I asked them was, can you give me, as best as possible, an approximation of what you might perceive as the amount of time? And again, I'm trying to create a definition for something we don't even have a word for yet, because I don't want to use the word time. I mean, how do you discuss the topic of time in a non-topic discussion? I don't have the word yet. So what they did was give me an answer based on the question that I asked. Using Earth terms, what would it kind of feel like to you from your perspective if I've come down to the planet for 75,000 years? And I said, well, because you've already told me that I've been coming down to this planet for essentially 75,000 lifetimes. Yeah. So, all right, now that makes me ask this question, guys. If you experienced me gone, using Earth terminology, what would it kind of feel like for you? And so they said, well, using kind of like an Earth parallel that you would understand, it would like you being gone a year or a year and a half, 5,000 years. They would notice us being gone. But I don't have a non-time word to use for that description. So they gave me the best explanation possible. I mean, if you want me to invent a word, I can do that, but I don't have a word yet for non-time. So does that better sit with you in terms of?
Oh yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, it does. Thank you for clearing that up the best you could. Sure. Let's switch gears here. Another ET group that you work with, the Silver Legion. I recently listened to an interview that Tanath did on some radio show. I'd like to have her on my show. I'm kind of interested how that radio host got a hold of her, because Tanath no longer has a contact link on the Silver Legion website. But anyway, you did do on your Andromeda Council website say that the Silver Legion does work with you guys. So I guess why don't you tell us how the Andromeda Council and the Silver Legion work hand in hand with each other?
Sure. I haven't spoken with Tanath in a while, but she's great lady, highly intelligent, very, very bright woman, very well-organized mind, and exuberant. She and her people enjoy the work that they do. they work interdimensionally with a variety of races, both from a variety of dimensions. And these people are truly warriors. They love the battle. They love getting rid of, kicking butt, if you will. They love getting rid of bad guys. That's what they're good at. And you'd have to talk to her about what are the races that are involved, who participate the most, what are their most fun jobs that they do. I'm not an expert on them, but I did introduce her, and we talked at least a little bit a few years ago based on some of their activities at that time. But she's got quite a few people working for her, and they love what they do. They like kicking butt. That's as much as I know. Sorry, I don't have more in-depth answer for you, but that's as much as I know.
All right, let's turn back the clock a little bit. A little controversy in regards to what you and some other people said. My understanding is the reason. Tell me if I'm right or wrong about this. The reason that there was some confusion. You said that Comet Ison was under the control of good ETs. Tanath and Sunfire and some other people said that it was actually a malevolent reptilian controlled a ship that was masquerading as a comet. But then I seem to recall seeing on some website Tanath saying that Comet Ison used to belong to malevolent reptilian aliens, but then it was taken from them by good ETs. So you were right, but they didn't realize that, and they didn't take into account the fact that good ETs took it from bad reptilians. Is that what happened with Comet Ison, and why there was so much confusion between you and the other guys as to what it was and what it wasn't?
Well, it's the first I've heard that kind of an explanation, honestly. Again, I do my best to keep my questions and answers straightforward. And so basically, boy, this is ancient history, but it's okay. My understanding is that it was, wherever it is now, was a higher dimensional ship with a specific purpose. And there were people traveling on it, and they were absolutely good ETs. And I believe that I did enough research that when I produced a YouTube video on this topic, I named who the people that were running the ship, where they came from. I've never heard any. My people never made mention of any reptilian influence on that ship at all. I just know that was a pretty divisive issue where Tanath and Tana/Sunfire, they were absolute about what they thought, and I find it interesting that they changed their minds later. But I was unequivocal about what that ship was, and I never changed my position at all, ever. Like, listen, you want to disagree with me? That's okay. That's fine. But I'm telling you what my people have told me, which is it's a higher dimensional ship. It's run by certain people. It has a specific mission. When it's done its mission, it's done. It's going to go on and do other things. So that's, that's ancient history, but that's as much as I can tell you on that topic.
Okay, fair enough. Another subject you often talk about, how your ET contacts say that us humans have to get in touch with nature. And believe me, I'm like you. I'm a nature lover too, although it's a little different for me. You live in the American Southwest. Up here, I live in non-so-much desert environment. But tell me, the nature environment down there, it's not just all desert. There are other non-desert nature places you can go to. Am I right?
Oh, yeah. And the nature... sorry to use the word, but the nature of desert changes from one elevation to the next. Spent many, many years in the general Tucson metropolitan area. I spent some time up in the northern Arizona desert, kind of like west of Sedona. I've spent time in other places in the Southwest, and I was raised in New England. It is distinctly different from what you and I experience in the Northeast. It is completely different. We have, back in the East, you drive down almost any road, and you're going to find trees creating an artificial ceiling for you. You almost can't see anything unless try to find a hilltop somewhere. And even then, you'd have to be like at the top of a fire tower to see out. In the West, you can stand at ground level and look out and see mountains. You can see hills. You can see clouds off in the distance. You can watch rainstorms fall. It's astounding. It's an amazing experience. I think the only time you get any sense for that in the East is if you go to the Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Jersey shores, plural, and you get to the beach and you look out and you go, I can see, because you can see the horizon, you can see the ocean, you can see the seagulls flying by. For the most part, that doesn't exist in the Northeast unless you get to the ocean. Is it all desert in Arizona? No. If you get up to Sedona, if you get up to Flagstaff has pine forests everywhere. There's snow that falls there. People ski up in Flag during the winter. But it's a decidedly different place to live, that's for sure. The idea of getting out into nature is really all about getting away from the energies and frequencies of the electronics and the bombardment of those frequencies, and, if you will, whether it's focused programming or even kind of sideways programming of the media that's attempted on our population. It's all about getting away from all of that and letting your mind quiet. And, when you get out into nature, as I'm sure you appreciate, you start walking and you can almost hear your own heartbeat. That's a really good thing to do for a number of reasons, including the fact that when you start to do it more and more often, the intuitive nature of people starts to thrive more. And there are, for lack of better words, there are answers and things that will bubble up inside of you, ideas that will come forward that you might not get if you were living in an urban environment being bombarded by various electronic devices and news and television and everything else in life. So that's part of the answer. The other part of the answer is that I've been told that unequivocally the vibration of being out in nature is the same vibration and frequency of that emotion that we call love. So, geez, the more we're out there, the better. The more, and you've had your own experiences out in nature, so I'm sure that you can attest to how peaceful you feel internally when you're out there walking around through the woods, or when you get to a stream or even a lake and you see some ducks in a pond. Incredibly quiet, incredibly peaceful. So being out in nature is all about being quiet enough to be in touch with yourself.
Right. Do you by any chance sun gaze? Because I sun gaze even in the middle of the day, and I can assure you it does not hurt your vision. I've never done that. I mean, I'm out in the sun quite a bit, when I walk, when I play tennis, but I don't sun gaze. I don't stare at it, no. Well, I encourage you to try, because I'm doing it since April of last year, and my vision is fine. It does not hurt your vision. That's one of the biggest lies we've ever been told. Trust me, it does a body good, and a mind and a body and a spirit good. So, hey, if you don't want to do it, it's up to you. But I'm also one of those. I'm also one of those people who my body enjoys. I'm not talking about 112 desert heat, but my body enjoys being out in the sun and absorbing those frequencies, absorbing those rays of the sun. Living out in the desert, you learn that you want to do that at certain times so the skin doesn't get burned, because believe me, it's intense. It's very intense. But go ahead. I interrupted you. Go ahead. All right, that's cool. Let's move on to the some of the things that are supposed to happen in the future. Now, I hate to bring it up, but let me make it very clear, Tolec. I have been one of your biggest defenders in regards to the whole January 2014 thing. I have actually told people, hey, don't blame him. He was only saying what his ET contacts told him. And you have to understand the reason it didn't happen, we were never on that timeline, and the reason we weren't on that timeline is because the creator gods at the top decided not to put us on that timeline. But I can imagine that you were just as confused as we were, and your ET contacts must have been just as confused when they were like, well, wait a minute, why didn't it happen, Tolec? Why are you telling us it didn't happen? We know what we saw. We saw this happen, so this raises the question, if the creator gods at the top were going to decide all along to put us on a timeline where that didn't happen, then how in the hell did your ET contacts see that that was going to happen and then consequently relay false information to you?
Sure. It's a twofold question. When I decided to accept your invitation, quite honestly, I didn't invest any energy into any of the questions that would be coming my way. I certainly appreciate the value of this question, so I'll answer it the best I can and as directly as I can. Here we go. Part A. Do you remember that comparison that I gave to you about 10 or 15 minutes ago? The corollary between what they experience, roughly a year and a half of time, wrong word, but a year and a half of experience of me not being with them, and 75,000 lifetimes down on this planet. Do you remember that information? Well, using that as an example, consider what it must be like to try to throw a dart at a board and do your best to identify exactly when something's going to happen. Because, from their perspective, if a year and a half of their perspective equals 75,000 lifetimes of our perspective, the difference between, as an example, 2014, 15, 16, 17 is like the snap of a finger. If you were to draw it out visually, you'd probably even have a better idea of how radically different those two concepts are. So I would first ask people to understand that when I asked for a date, because it was a bunch of people were asking me, I said, okay, let me ask the question. And whenever I asked the question, that's when they gave me the information of January of 2014. And I kept going on doing my job without really re-asking that question at any time in the future. And yes, I was surprised. B, here's the answer that they gave me when I asked why it didn't happen. And it's a multi-answer answer, but one of the answers is there is no fixed timeline. They once gave me the visual of, and again, this is a visual representation to give me a sense for what can happen on this planet. They showed me like this 25-lane highway, 12 lanes on the right, a predominant center lane, 12 lanes on the left. And from what they were showing me, the farther over that humanity on this planet makes choices that bring it away from the predominant timeline, the farther left they go. And the farther away from the predominant timeline that they will experience life, the kind of reality that humanity hopes for, the farther away from center you get, literally the farther away from the predominant timeline that you get. Same thing on the right. So, the farthest left you go, the farthest right you go, you're away from the predominant timeline. And the closer you go to center, the more likely we will unfold as we're supposed to in terms of what the future will be like on this world. So using that as another visual representation, the other part of the answer, which is C, is that even they did not anticipate the amount of growth that the people of planet Earth have done, like over, I don't know, let's call it 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13. We've grown. there are a lot of people like Alfred Weber and others who talk about, and even Mark Kimmel talks about consciousness, raising consciousness. And so from that perspective, though I don't talk about it a lot, from that perspective, they being my higher dimensional Andromeda contact people, fully realize the amount of growth and the numbers of people that began to awaken. And one of the key reasons is that this technology we have called the Internet enables people all across the globe to essentially communicate for a one-time low fee on a per-month basis. When years ago, as you and I were growing up, a long-distance phone call from New York to New Jersey or from Maine to Massachusetts, if you did it for an hour, it was going to cost you $100. That whole paradigm's gone. People talk to each other. It's like Lisa Harrison in Australia, Alfred Weber up in Canada, me here in the States, somebody else in Canada. We're all talking at the same time because of Skype. So I bring that up because we now have this new communications medium that has promoted people's ability to communicate and to learn at an unprecedented pace. So even though the percentage of people who are going to stay here as compared to leave, which is kind of like 53 and 47, even though that lower number, 47, has bumped up a little bit, it's still in the millions of people. And so, to make a long story short, they basically said this process of consciousness evolution, and maybe to some degree revolution, it has not completed itself yet. And we need to allow the people of Earth to meet their maximum consciousness, emotional and spiritual potential. We need to allow that to happen whenever it happens. And that's the final part is after that experience of upper 4D not happening in January of 14, I asked them a lot of questions, and they reiterated and kind of like drove this concept into my skull that it is not about when. It is about what. And the what is the right combination of social consciousness awakening events on planet and the peak of social consciousness and literal spiritual awareness. When that and certain events happen in the cosmos, that will be when the moment of transformation happens and this world goes from being organic to being higher dimensional spirit essence matter based. Now that doesn't mean that all people are going to go from like being 6th grade or 7th grade emotional and spiritually based people to college based right away. People will still evolve. Mark Kimmel has certainly plainly stated that it's going to take some considerable time. I think Mark said a couple of generations for people to evolve to the point where many of us are at the same vibratory level and the same literal level of what is spiritual life all about. Because if you try to ask that question of people who are just waking up, most people will sort of define what they think about spiritual life as, I'm shedding my concept of religions and church, and I'm on a spiritual path getting closer to God. Wrong. You can do that. You can make all sorts of internal changes to move yourself on a path of getting closer to what is called the Creator, the creation, God. You can do that, but that's not what spiritual life is about. Spiritual life is learning about who you are. Where was your spiritual fine matter essence first birth? What star system did you come from? Why are you really here on this planet? What gifts of lives can you bring to bear while you're here? That's what knowledge of spiritual life is about, because we're actually talking about the vibration of spirit life. I know that's a multi-part answer, but that's really the totality of the answer. They really didn't understand the fast-paced growth that we were experiencing. They didn't expect the numbers that were climbing so fast. They said, we need to wait this thing out and let these people evolve to the peak of their consciousness. And it kind of looks like that's going to happen somewhere around 217. And I'm hedging every possible corner that I can to say, kind of looks like it might, because that's the nature of things. Humanity has to peak. In the form that we're at now, it has to peak, and there are certain cosmic events that will need to happen in order for that to trigger. When will that exactly happen? I don't know.
Well, now it's time to look into the potential future a little bit here. Two things I want to talk about, September of this year and then later on 2017. Just so you know, the live feed for this show will be going off in 24 minutes, 20 seconds. We can go a little past that if you want to finish a thought or something, but I do want to try to keep this to a 2-hour show. But first of all, in regards to September 2015, a lot of things people are saying is that's going to be a big time for some major events. I mean, first of all, the Pope is going to be coming to America. That's significant from a political standpoint, because many people say that would violate the separation of church and state. He's supposed to come to Philadelphia. I actually will not be here then. I'm actually going to be down in your territory, tripping on peyote in the Arizona desert on the 28th during the same time as that lunar eclipse. And by the way, since I mentioned that lunar eclipse that's on the 28th, it's the final eclipse in a tetrad. And Matt Kahn, in an interview on In5D Radio, he said that lunar eclipse will signify the time when approximately 1/3 of humanity will resonate with fifth dimensional consciousness. Although when I had Neil Kramer on my show, he said he can't imagine that many people being that awake. However, a couple of other things around that time. This other author named Jonathan Kahn, no relation to the Matt Kahn I just mentioned, he talked about in an interview with Leanne McAdoo of InfoWars that every 7 years we have a Shemitah. Every 49 years we have a Super Shemitah. The Super Shemitah is set to happen in this upcoming September. And also, there is a prophecy that an asteroid is supposed to hit the Atlantic Ocean on September 24th. However, I did contact you about that, and you told me that your ET contacts did say that they're going to make sure that that asteroid does not hit the Earth. Yeah, okay, you can confirm that they did tell you that. So in regards to this whole September time period being a Super Shemitah and the significance of this lunar eclipse. I hope this lunar eclipse doesn't make me go crazy when I'm going to go tripping on peyote down in the Arizona desert at that time period. I do look forward to that, though. But anyway, what do you have to hear about this upcoming September time period?
What is, by the way, what is, it sounds like a Jewish word. What is a Shemitah?
Shemitah. How do I I don't remember too much from that interview. He said, like, every 7 years, something significant will happen, like a lot in regards to finance. And then every 49 years, something really big happens, and this is the Super Shemitah that happens every 49 years. Some people say it may actually be the collapse of the dollar, if you can go along with that, because I know you've talked about in past interviews how there's a transition when we're going to go to gold-backed currency, and then maybe after 10 years we'll go to no money at all. And some people say maybe
actually,
that transition.
Those two concepts are separate, and I'd like to address the second one, if I may, just briefly.
Okay.
What I've learned about that topic of 10 years is that, at least based on the way we calculate time today, at some near point in the future when this world transforms from being a 3D organic world into, whether we call it mid 4D, higher 4D, 5D, it really doesn't matter to me, except that it will be a world that is fine essence matter, frequency based. All right? So when this world transforms, what I've learned is that it will take about 10 years, as we calculate time today, for us on this planet, based on, and again, this is after all the Earth changes happen, but for us on this planet to migrate from a global economy based on money, global economy based on service to others, and simply trade. You need water, we have water. You have oil, we need oil. You have coconuts, we need coconuts. I mean, that kind of thing. Of course, every country has their own gifts that they have in terms of agriculture. And so there's going to be just, I can't even imagine exactly how it's going to work, but it will essentially be a planet that will be based on trade and sharing of resources, which very much mimics what's going on in the heavens, because they don't use money. But out in space, it's all about trade. They don't use money. They just don't. So that's the 10-year thing, just to be clear about it. Now I'm going to answer the question about this coming September. It's my understanding that this September will begin a period of some significant Earth changes. More volcanoes popping off, more earthquakes happening. It's also my understanding that there's likely going to be some kind of reverberation effect from this asteroid that'll be going by. They call it high winds, high tides. I don't know exactly what it's going to be like, but there's supposed to be some cause and effect from that asteroid going by. And that this time frame beginning this September is supposed to be the beginning of a whole bunch of Earth changes. In terms of social changes and financial changes, for anybody that follows this information on the web, there's an amazing amount of information that's been shared, I guess in the past couple of years, that reveals how much change is happening. And if they just look at the establishment of the bank, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, as well as its aligned Asian Development Bank, essentially now have a 1-2 counterpunch to the IMF and World Bank. So this is the amazing time to be on this planet. There's a lot going on in terms of social change, governmental change. Scotland just had a referendum as to whether they were going to remain connected to the UK. I don't mean just, but certainly within months, whether they're going to remain connected to the UK or become independent. It's my understanding that they're still part of the UK, but just the fact that vote was held indicates that there's a lot of change in the wind. There's just a lot going on. Currently, Greece, the financial world, my understanding is that Greece is going to say goodbye to the IMF, and they're going to say goodbye to the Federal Reserve System. Iceland did it. Iceland's already done it. The thing with Iceland, though, is that they were pretty much autonomous. Iceland went on their own years ago, but nobody talks about it much. So it's going to be an interesting time. I expect a lot of collapsing. I don't expect a monster collapse. I expect a whole bunch of piles of collapses throughout the financial world. What else do you have?
Yeah, just so you know, we do have a caller in the queue, area code 609. I'll try to maybe, I don't know if he's just listening or if he wants to call in, but I do want to get this one final thing about the upcoming time period in before I let this caller on the air. So if you want to stick around, just stick around. I'll let you talk to Tolec if you want to. But I do want to address the whole thing about how 2017 is supposed to be a time of great change. I did talk about this with Ray Kusalandich on the show when I had him on. And I did address a couple of contradictory things about some other people have said about why this whole thing about 2017 is just a bunch of hullabaloo. Two people in particular. I recently interviewed Lily Earthling, who asserts that the organic timeline on Earth would not allow for ascension to happen. She asserts that the only way you can ascend for all intents and purposes is when your DNA skin suit, your body, it dies, and then that's when your soul, your spirit essence will leave your body and be able to ascend. She actually, interestingly says, she thinks that that the reality we live in, third dimensional, that's like the ultimate graduation. That's like 12th grade, because we have it hard all the other ETs in the higher densities and dimensions, they have it much easier. They would like want to experience what we're experiencing because we have it hard down here, and the fact that if we get past this, then we've really graduated like 12th grade, she says. Other people would say, well, that's a bad way of looking at it. You should look at it the other way, like you get out of this, you want to get to more easy life in the higher dimensions and densities. So I guess that's a point of view issue. But she says that Ascension cannot. Well, I have a couple of other things to point out here. She says that can't happen, Ascension, unless your DNA skin suit dies. Even if everybody on planet Earth suddenly realized, oh, we're infinite consciousness, we're all that is, and will be in space and time illusions, it doesn't matter. Your DNA skin suit still has to die. That's the way things work. And this other ET contactee named Bashar, I had a chance to speak to his human contact, Daralanka, at a conference in January 2014, and I told him, when are we going to, be doing all the things that a fourth dimensional human can do that you talked about in your interview with Alfred Weber? And he interestingly said, you already are in the fourth dimension because you exist in three dimensions of space and one dimension of time.
I know.
He said there is a difference between dimension and density. He said you could think of dimensions as a country and densities as different states within that country. And here's the kicker. He said, you will remain in physicality for another 1,000 years. In that time, you will move in and out of different densities, and that flies in the face of what other people have said about 2017 being the time period when we will move out of physicality. So can you maybe debunk or maybe in some sense confirm what Bashar and also Lily Earthling have said about 2017 is not the time for Ascension?
Here we go. Based on a couple of conversations with, I will keep this person's identity confidential because that's what they would like. They said that, because I didn't know about this topic. I'm like, what's this deal? And they said, this is a reference. This is biblical. This is a biblical reference of this 1,000-year. Somebody's ability to cite, 1,000 years of. It has to do with ancient biblical text. Not something I know about, but something this person clearly knew a lot about, and she's also very, very highly developed in terms of spiritual connectivity. So there's that piece. For the purposes of this discussion, and I know that Mark Kimmel and I defined 4D and 5D differently because he talks about it more in terms of consciousness, and I talk about it more in terms of vibrational physicality. Sorry, let me say that differently. Vibration. Let's try it this way. If 3D organic is physicality as we know it, you have a human male body, I have a human male body. There are people down the street who have human female bodies. Let's call that, for the sake of this moment in time, organic 3D life. If you shed away the organic 3D body, there's a spirit essence that animates that body. You can call that 4D, 5D, 6D, 7D, whatever you want to call it, because once you leave 3D organic, anything north of that, anything higher is made of higher frequency, larger vibration, fine essence matter. It's no longer organic. It is literally spiritual matter. So I don't care if you call it 4D or 5D. Both of them, even 6D for that matter, all of those are spirit essence matter vibrations. That's about the best way that I can point out a difference between the two. And when I talk about the transformation of this world from 3D to 4D, I am literally talking about, if you will, let's say that you were out in space in a ship and you're watching the moment of transformation. You would literally watch the planet Earth turn into like a baby powder. The planet Earth would literally like just turn into baby powder, and in that very same moment, it would start to vibrate at the higher frequencies. You would literally see the planet transform, and what you would see essentially is like a blue-tinted crystal ball, kind of with the outlines of the continents, or at least what's left of the continents and all of the water. You wouldn't see it in the 3D organic form that we see it today, because once it changes, it's no longer going to be organic. That's the same thing with the human that transforms. At the moment of transformation from 3D organic physicality to a higher dimensional life form, yes, the human body is going to basically like turn into powder. It's literally going to just go whoosh. And what will be revealed is a whole planet full of higher dimensional life. Whether you call it 4D or 5D, the whole planet, whoever's here, whoever's remaining on the planet, will be of higher dimensional life and vibration. I hope that clarifies it from what I've learned.
Thank you very much. All right, there.
Sure.
So just before I let this caller on, there's 9 minutes and 10 seconds left on the live feed. Just try to keep this to a 2-hour show for all the sake of all the people out there who have lousy attention spans. But this, area code 609, you are on the air. What's your name? Where you're from? What's your question?
My name is Pat Bergstresser. I'm from East Windsor, New Jersey, and I just want to thank Tolec for everything he's done. I'm just so grateful for his energy, and I feel a very strong, loving connection to his being. And I'm grateful.
Well, thanks, Pat. I really appreciate it.
My guidance is to walk through my heart, so I try to...
Wise woman.
I just breathe through my heart, send love to the earth every day, and it's a simple walk, but that's what I seem to be doing, is to work with the earth. That's it.
Yeah. Well said.
That's it.
It's a wonderful way to live. I know people are going to poke fun at me, but I'll say it. I tell my brain almost every day, get out of the way.
Yeah.
The mind is important to gather facts, but I really try to make my best decisions in all decisions based on where my intuition, where my heart is leading. And then, of course, I verify with some facts after, but I really pay close attention to my heart.
Yeah, and stay in the now moment. And
Absolutely.
In that wonderful silence that comes, and yes, nature is my healing guide. I must go out and be with it, and that's where I get my healing, is through nature.
Yeah. Sounds like you're doing great.
Well, it's a journey. Some weeks are better than others, as you know, in the physical body and all these energies that I have to deal with sometimes. But it's quite a journey. But I'm so grateful for your presence here, and I love listening to you, and I listened to you and Mark the other time, and I got his book, which was very interesting, too, about the origins of the Earth and the different views of that. Yeah.
I think you might be happy to know that I'm going to be having an all-female panel discussion. We'll be recording it. We'll be recording it this Sunday, but it will be myself and 4 or 5 women who are in their own right. Yeah, pretty enlightened, pretty awakened. They all have different sort of health care / spiritual practices. So I'll be probably posting it on Monday or Tuesday of next week on the Andromeda Council website. So for all the women listening, I'm sure it'll be enlightening.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
Probably for us men too. We can always learn to use something. We can always use to learn something.
Well, I think we're balancing the male and the female in each one of our beings. And that's what I'm experiencing, and it's releasing the wounds, the traumas, and it takes time, steps, choices, and when we can do it,
Yeah.
And I believe more in a sovereign approach to my journey instead of paying hundreds and thousands of dollars to be told, I'm going to help you ascend, and this is the way to do it,
Well, I think you'll find out.
I just kind of walk through my own door. And that's my choice.
Certainly. I think people will learn as this planet continues to evolve that there will be things that they will hope and expect the government to fix, and the government won't have any power to do it.
No.
Things will be happening so fast.
Yeah.
So I commend you for living a life which is intuitive and spiritual based as well as sovereign. Because nobody can take better care of you than you.
That's right. And we can always ask for that help. They're there, our guides and everything are there for us. Ask.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
My dream states are totally wild. I mean, oh my goodness, I could write thousands of books on my dream states, but it's like I'm in other dimensions doing other things. And a week ago, that's how I felt. I was in another portal dimension doing maybe warrior work. I don't know, but I felt like I didn't know who I was. I was just walking and saying, "Where did I go?"
Yeah, you probably were.
That's
what
I felt, and that's what they finally told me. And at least I got an answer. I'm 71. I've gone back as a med tech, second shift. I'm working in the lab. I like machines. They like me. And and everything is energy. David Wilcox is awesome with his view on Oregon energy, which is very interesting, too.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're living a fulfilling life, and that's an important thing.
Yeah, I am.
Do those
I'm
things
grateful.
that feed you. Yeah.
I'm very grateful. But I wanted to thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for calling in. I do have one more caller in the queue. I just want to be able to get him on the air.
Thanks, Ruth. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care. All right, this next caller goes by the name Parasite Milton. So just so you know, Parasite Milton, 3 minutes and 45 seconds left on the live feed, but you are on the air. What's your name? Where are you from? What's your question? Or are you just listening? Something tells me he might just be listening, so I kicked Ruth off a little prematurely there. Sorry, Ruth, you probably could have stuck on a little longer, but apparently Parasite Milton is just listening to the end of this. So, well, Tolec, since we still have 3 minutes, 15 seconds left on the live feed, I guess one more question for you. One thing that I get very concerned about whenever I talk about this thing in regards to 2017 Ascension or whatever it may be, it kind of concerns me that it might cause people to take up a couch potato attitude where they're going to think, I don't have to do jack shit because the ETs are going to come and save me. And when I told that to Draco, and if it concerns him that that's what he's going to make people do, and he talks about it, he says, oh, no, I don't think people are that stupid. Nobody's going to do that. So does it ever concern you that talking about Ascension in 2017 or whenever might cause people to sit back and think the ETs are going to come and save us, or does that not really concern you?
Well, okay. God bless Ray. Ray's a great guy. He has such a wonderful heart. He really does. I've enjoyed my conversations with him. Topic. So I'll take it from the top. I personally, in my role as Tolec, as I work with or for the Andromeda Council, I have never, ever said that the people of the Andromeda Council will show up and save them. What I have said is that there will be at least one biosphere that will be designated for those people during the time of transitioning right up to that moment of transformation to becoming a higher D world. For those people that want to leave and go to a similar 3D organic kind of Earth, pristine and virgin, they can hop a ride on biosphere and go to another Earth-like planet if they want to continue to live out 3D Earth kind of lives. If they want to, they can. It's an option. It's simply an option. As to probably the more important issue, it's an interesting topic. What I would have to say is that each person has a right to do what motivates them or makes them happy. If they are comfortable laying on the couch and simply hanging around or watching TV and watching the news, that's their right to do that. I would never recommend that, but that's their right. It's a person's right to be a couch potato. It's a person's right to be an anarchist. It's a person's right to do a lot of things. What I would never advocate or recommend is a life of terrorism and or murder or rape or killing people. I would never advocate that. But in terms of spiritual consciousness, people are going to do what they're going to do. Not everyone is on a path that requires they want to evolve emotionally or spiritually. I know some people back east who are wonderful friends, and they will never, ever walk down this path of emotional and or spiritual evolution. That's just not something that interests them. So, couch potato, some evolution and growth, a lot of evolution and growth. It's on a person. It's, as Mark said, it's on a person by person basis, without a doubt. And people, each person will evolve at his or her own rate, at which they are most comfortable. What I have learned over time is that even with myself, there are periods in our lives where sometimes the rate is quick. The rate of growth and evolution is quick and progressive, sometimes a little bit slower. But if you have the desire to evolve, desire to grow, then you'll bring things into your life which will cause your growth and involvement. How's that for an answer?
Great answer indeed. So, great answer indeed, and God bless Ray as well. So, now that this
absolutely.
This show will come to an end now, and I guess I'll tell you the same thing I tell all of my guests. Tolec, you're a fascinating individual, and I have no doubt that if I wanted to, I could do another show with you. But one of my goals with this radio show is to get as many different people on my show as possible before giving any one specific guest double dips, because I feel that is the fairest, most impartial, and most informative way of doing a radio show that seeks to expose the true and false nature of reality. And that does mean, unfortunately, that I probably will not be asking you to come on my show again, but that's only because I need to give thousands of other fascinating individuals the chance to have some glory on my show. But mark my words, I will make sure this interview spreads far and wide. I will send you an MP3 like you requested. I will upload this interview to my YouTube channel, but if you want to kill two birds with one stone and upload it to your official YouTube channel as well, then by all means do it. That'll only allow more people to hear the valuable information in this interview. So you'll be getting that MP3 sometime within the next couple days, I promise you.
Andrew, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure, too. Take care, Tolec.
Take care.
Later.
All right, good night.
All right, folks, that's the end of this interview. Next week on the show, I am scheduled to have Justin Keith English, who is the host of Infinity Radio on Blog Talk. He called into my show on that same time that Simon Parks did not show. And I do actually have some theories as to why Simon Parks did not come on my show, but I'm not going to talk about that now. So Justin Keith English, another radio host. Always love having another radio host on because they're very knowledgeable from all the guests that they've had on their show. He will be the guest next week. And then I actually don't have any guests after that. I'm going to have to contact a lot of other people to see if they want to come on. So without further ado, this is Andrew Fisher signing off from Nature of Reality Radio. Enjoy the rest of your trek throughout infinite consciousness, folks. This is Andrew Fisher signing off.